and welcome back to Tuesday at Dobbs's. As always, thank you so much everyone for getting in touch. Best place to do so, comments section below, and if you have a longer story, maybe with some pictures, you can email hi@tuesday@dobbs.com. Have a read through after a podcast, all of the comments, because a lot of the time the comments are equally as interesting as the podcast itself. But this week, I really do think there's an especially exciting podcast. Honestly, I was busy writing down this podcast, getting ready, and the amount of interesting, eye-opening stuff, I've been almost shaking with excitement to get started. So we're going to start off. What happens when bikes get written off? We're going to wrap up the conversation from last week. This takes a really, really interesting turn. I couldn't peel my eyes away from the laptop this morning. I'm going to start off with midlife crisis. Freddie, I had minor damage and a few scuffs to my bike. They claim they did, that's the repair company, claim they did £7,000 worth of repairs and, listen to this, ended up with £36,000 worth of rental bike costs that were paid via the third party's insurance. I had so many messages, emails like this, people saying they had hire a bike in the meantime and they paid £23,000 in rental prices for a bike in the meantime. The list is endless, but this was the biggest one, £36,000. I continue, on to Hugh. Freddie, I was hit by a car in 2023 and the company wrote off my bike. I was pretty injured with head injuries, so I trusted the company dealing with my bike or as I was in no fit state to deal with it. I'm still waiting on my payout from the insurance company 12 months on, and I have been chasing. I've since bought a new bike, but I've learned from my experience and I will not trust these companies again. Also, and get ready for this, so the bike's been written off. It's been 12 months now that Hugh's been waiting for the payout for his written off bike that he never saw again because it's a write-off. But listen to this. Also, I've since checked my written off bike on the online database and it's MOT'd and taxed. MOT, for any non-Brits, is the annual check you have to get for your bike to make sure it's roadworthy. So this bike of Hugh's, it's been written off. He still hasn't had his money for the insurance company, but the bike is back on the road. Someone's clearly bought this bike, MOT'd it, put some tax on it, and they're riding it around. I'll move on to Gary, Australia. Freddie in New South Wales, Australia. If a bike's written off, it cannot be repaired ever. Insurance companies here in Australia also write off bikes with minimal damage. I'm not sure what the angle is here, but I know it won't be in the owner's interest. Right, for the benefit of a balanced argument. On the other side of things, I've got a couple of fairly positive bits of insight. This is from Sir Kitchalot. Freddie, last year I had a non-fault accident. I was rear-ended. Fourth Dimension was instructed by my insurance company and I was made totally aware of all costs. But I also got in writing that I would not be liable for any, block capitals, any loan bike costs. I was worried about Fourth Dimension taking over my claim, grabbing or having read the reviews, but I've personally found them to be quite effective. For clarity, my claim is in the final process of being settled and I don't expect any problem. Block capitals, always read the small print. And before signing any agreement, read the terms. I think most people, they just think they can claim back every expense. It's just not as simple as that. You know, I think that's the biggest takeaway point. It's the loan bikes. It sounds amazing, great. You know, my bike's been crashed or it's been written off, but that's fine. I'll get a loan bike in the meantime that will be provided to me by the insurance company. The amount of people that seem to have gigantic problems taking these loan bikes, which are given at extortionate fees that most of the time the other insurance company will have to pay for. But either way, tens of thousands of pounds for loan bikes that are so ridiculously expensive, you may as well just go out to the insurance company, buy a bike for the person in the meantime, then sell it back. I'll do one more here from Eric 3925. Freddie, we all complain about high insurance costs, but most bikers want their bikes repaired to as new standards. This results in financial write-offs of bikes that are essentially fine to ride. Companies make money from this, but are the people that buy back their bikes and repair them cheaply, then bank the £3,000, are they just as bad? We all have to pay the price. Air, the only issue I have with that, and I do broadly agree, but if I'm offered my bike back and I'm offered a payout from the insurance company, the reality is, if I think I'm doing a good deed and say to the insurance company, no, you know what? I've got my bike back. I've got my claim money. That's fine. I don't need that much money back. It's fine. The only person in that situation I'm helping out is the insurance company. All I'm doing is putting money into the insurance company's pockets. That it won't change the way the industry works. At the moment, it sounds like it's not working properly, and me not taking the money I'm offered, I just can't see that improving the situation at all. I'm not going to get a pat on the back from the insurance company for doing that, and I'm not going to get a handshake from anyone. The only person that would lose out if I don't take everything offered to me is myself. This is where I started getting really fascinated. Here's where things get very interesting. Thanks to Ian, I'm now going to share with you where these written off bikes go, where all of these bikes that we've been talking about over the past week, that a lot of the time are really, really borderline write-offs. Sometimes there's almost nothing wrong with them. Where do they go? From Ian. Freddie, here is the shop on eBay where the written off bikes go to be sold. The company Moto Mine, they sell Category N bikes. So Category N bikes are the least damaged bikes. Here we go. Type in Moto Mine to eBay and this is what comes up. These are all the bikes that have been deemed a write-off from insurance companies and now they're available for sale to you and I, to individuals. Go onto eBay now, they're all on auctions. Just have a look at a few of these. There's a Honda CBR 500. Auction ends in 7 hours time. £1,400. There is a BMW R1200 from 2017. Auction ends in 7 hours. £3,700. But I've picked 3 specific ones here. Right, you ready for this? Yamaha XSR, pictures here now. 700. 2018 model. 2,000 miles on the clock. This bike has a value of £4,700. So the auction ends in 4 hours when I'm talking, 4 hours 53 minutes time. It's got a value of £4,700 once it's in working order with this mileage. Yet the auction, and it will sell whatever the price, is only at £1,950. If you scroll down, they're very transparent with it, to be fair. It says, damage type, it's been in an accident, the keys are present, there's no logbook, the engine does run, and the category is an N. I mean, if you can pick this bike up for £2,300, you have to fancy your chances of getting an absolute bargain. I'll do 2 more. BMW R1250R Sport, 2019 model. It's got a value, if you go onto Auto Trader and look for one in running order, of £8,500. But I can find one here. 2 days left, 12 bids, £4,800. Around £4,000 cheaper than retail, but it's got 2 days left, so we'll have to see what happens to this. But look at this. Scroll down and I can see here, damage type. This is fascinating. Storm. The bike has been sat in a freshwater flood, brackets not salt water, roughly 2 feet deep. It's got the keys present, it's got the V5 logbook, the engine, yes, it does start and run, it's started multiple times. No immediate sign of engine damage caused by water. So if the engine starts and runs and there's no obvious sign of damage to the engine, it's started multiple times, what is the problem with this bike? It sounds like this is a bike that you could ride away with no real damage, yet you could be saving £3,000 plus, depending on what it sells for in the end, just for the fact it's been declared a write-off, even though they've checked the engine and it works. I'll do one more because I found this so fun. Final one, Yamaha Tenere, 2019 model, 8,000 miles on the clock. If you want to buy one of these in running order, ready to go, you would be looking at paying £7,000. But this one here ends in 1 day, 4 hours time, 36 bids, so it is a popular one. This is £5,000 currently. And what's wrong with this one? Damage type, stolen recovered. Does the engine run? No, because the ignition's been cut. So again, for this bike, it's been declared a write-off. There's no other damage mentioned here at all. And potentially all you need to do with this bike is buy a new key barrel and key. Go to Yamaha and say you want a new key. Maybe you need to get it programmed. That's it. I mean, have a look at the pics. There's nothing wrong with it. I think this is one of the biggest finds, the biggest revelations that I've seen since doing this podcast. Ian, that is beyond fascinating. Thank you so much for sending that through. Some of these bikes are bargains with nothing wrong with them at all. Maybe even I could repair these. I'm going to do one more little bit here. This is from Peak Rider. Freddie, there is another category worth looking at. I can almost guarantee most people won't have heard of this. I certainly haven't. It's category X. These bikes are usually recovered bikes, either from theft or this is the important bit, non-payment of PCP/hire purchase. They generally have little to no damage, structural or cosmetic, and you can find them with keys and V5 logbooks, and they can often be ridden away upon collection. Peak Rider, let's have a look at this. Just to mix it up, purely to mix it up. I'll go on to a car site here, because look, a lot of us are car fans as well. I typed in category X, and this is what popped up. Copart.co.uk. 140 cars have come up, and they are all category X. But have a listen to this. There's a 2022 BMW i35i for £16,000, and you just click to join the auction. Some of the values here are phenomenal. This is opening up a completely new world that I had no idea about. There's one here that ends, I'll do one more, in 20 hours time. It's a Mercedes-Benz A45 AMG 2015 model, and it's £6,000. And this has been stolen, so potentially very, very little wrong with it. Minor dents and scratches, normal wear, runs and drives fine. Right, I will end the conversation there. Thank you so much everyone for input. It's been eye-opening, and I hope there's been something there for people looking to pick up a bargain. So long as you don't care if your vehicle is or has been declared a write-off, I mean, I personally wouldn't, then the bargains are phenomenal. Moving on. Ollie. Freddie, greetings from Portugal. Although location varies by day, as I'm currently on a 3-month road trip in a self-converted van, travelling around Europe with the fiancé and Gordon, the dog. On my return, I've decided I cannot wait any longer. I need to buy my first big boy motorcycle. I passed my test last June, but I've been unable to ride, partly due to funding the camper conversion and partly down to the fact that my mechanic has been unable to fix my 125cc Honda Varadero, which has been sat in his garage since August. They've got to be one of the simplest bikes to fix, surely. That, however, is a story for another day. The problem I face is I really don't know what bike I want to ride, and therefore I don't want anything too expensive for a first attempt. I've set a budget of under £3,000 and I ideally want something that is, here's the criteria, zippy, characterful, and can be used all year round. But does such a bike exist? Ollie, I'll open up these pics of your trip. I do love a camper conversion. I'll have a look at that. Clothes just hung up on the side, opened up the back of the van. I assume you're having some breakfast there, shorts and t-shirt. What a brilliant road trip. Right, Ollie, easy. £3,000, you've got a very healthy budget. This is the great thing about biking, so many exciting motorbikes for £3,000 or under. You're spoilt for choice. You want zippy, characterful, and to be able to use it year round. You also want something relatively inexpensive to buy and run. That's my guess. If your budget's 3K, you also want something reasonably reasonable money-wise to look after. I've got two very similar bikes, two brothers of bikes. Kawasaki, it's been a while since I mentioned this, W800. Ollie, look no further. Facebook Marketplace, have a listen to this. Tell me if you can find any better. You've got character, you've got ease of use, ease of living. It gets phenomenally good reliability records. In fact, it scores well across the board for handling, comfort, etc., etc. It's got an 800cc engine and it's got 47 horsepower. And being your first big bike, it will be extremely easy to ride and just in general have impeccable road manners. All that bike, 2011 model, for £3,200. But have a listen to this. This is exactly what you want. This is, and I'm quoting here, the non-ABS version. Service history, long MOT, 24,000 all-weather miles. So there are some signs of age, brackets, great patina. The seller here is a man after my own heart. Call it patina. But this, Ollie, is exactly what you want. An all-weather bike. This has been used as an all-weather bike, so you don't need to worry about any new patina. It's got enough there so you don't need to be paranoid about any little scratches. I think that's perfect. I continue. If someone wanted to spend some time with Autosol and a toothbrush, it would clean up lovely, all the chrome's in good condition, recent new tyres and front pads. If it's advertised, it's available. £3,200. Come on, surely you can get that for £3,000. What a stylish bike for £3,000. But, Ollie, if you want to just spend a bit less, £500 or so less, how about this? 1999 Kawasaki W650 for £2,750. Someone else gives some other tips on great sub 3K bikes with character that might suit Ollie. But for me, Ollie, if it were my choice, I would be going out. I think I'd be spending a tiny bit more money and getting that W800. Happy shopping. On now to Jerry. Jerry in the USA. This week's episode is full of shocks. Jerry, what is this? Freddie, my interest was piqued when I saw this bike for sale on eBay. It is, get your pens and paper here ready if you're curious on this type of stuff. It is a Royal Enfield / Indian hybrid. Okay, I initially stopped here and thought, Jerry, what on earth are you talking about? But I thought, no, Fred, read on. Continuing with Jerry, I have never heard of this collaboration between these two great marks before, but it seems to be legit. Rarer than hen's teeth. In fact, I tell you what, the pictures are up now. Rarer than hen's teeth to find one, but the history and the story behind it is intriguing. I've attached some photographs and the seller's description, but I have to say it looks like a lot of fun with a 700cc Royal Enfield parallel twin mated with those Indian aesthetics. Jerry, USA. I mean, it looks like a Royal Enfield when you first look at it, but then you look a bit closer and it's got these strange Indian accents dotted around the place that makes you look twice. And then you look on the tank and it's got an Indian logo on the tank. So let's see what the seller's saying about this. Bear in mind it's over in the US. Quoting, and this is based in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Indian Enfields are very rare, produced in small batches, usually around 1,000 bikes per year for each model. While most mechanical parts are from Royal Enfield, the body items were specifically crafted for the US market. In a snippet of history, listen to this. During the late 1940s to the mid-1950s, Indian held the exclusive role of importing British motorcycles to the USA. I had no idea. With the exception of BSA and Triumph, Royal Enfield collaborated with Indian during this period, building motorcycles according to Indian's specification. This partnership resulted in a period from 1955 to around 1960 where Royal Enfields were absent in the USA, making Indian Enfields a unique and scarce presence in American motorcycle history. So you've seen this pic, or these pics that I've just shown, the ones that Jerry sent me. But to give you a really good idea of the dream of how amazing these bikes can look, let me get this up full screen on mine. This is what an immaculate one looks like. I won't say anything for a second just so you can soak it in. I honestly think these bikes look so phenomenally good that if Indian and Royal Enfield actually, here in 2024, did a collaboration, good for Indian, they managed to get a foothold into the small capacity market, and good for Royal Enfield because Indian's a very cool brand and why not do a collaboration? Good way maybe for Royal Enfield to get a little bit more into the US market perhaps. If they did this collaboration in 2024, I honestly believe it would be such a successful collaboration that they could be going toe-to-toe with the likes of, well, I say Royal Enfield, then that would be a bit of a dangerous business plan from Royal Enfield, but forget about that. They'd go toe-to-toe with Royal Enfield, toe-to-toe with Triumph and their retro bikes. Anyone, they could take on anyone with this bike. I'm blown away, Jerry. These look brilliant. If anyone's got one of these, let me know. Rarer than hen's teeth, as I think it was as Jerry put it, or as the advert put it, and I can believe it because I tried finding one of these in the UK. Forget it. Not going to happen. But there you go. Royal Enfield / Indian hybrid. If you want to look for it, I originally typed in Indian Royal Enfield. And of course that's stupid because Royal Enfield is Indian. So all I got up were a whole load of Royal Enfield bikes. That's not good enough. You have to type in Royal Enfield Indian Trailblazer. That, to the best of my knowledge, is the name of the model. Type that in, see if you can find one. If anyone buys one, if anyone's got one, send me those pics, let me know what it's like. I love the look of this bike. Sales phenomenon if it comes. Moving on to Sweden, and we're on to Peter. This is just such a nice collection of bikes over the past few years that one Swedish biker has built up, bought, sold, repaired, that I had to share it. And don't be too fooled by first appearances because not all of these bikes are exactly as they seem. Hi Freddie, pictures included and I'll put these up as I chat. I usually ride heavier customs. I usually ride heavier cruisers, but for health reasons, I had to have a lighter motorcycle, and so I sold my cruisers and bought a 2008 Triumph Speedmaster last year. And this season will have to show whether this really can become and remain my bike. But I always have a second motorcycle next to it that I renovate during the long winters in Sweden, which I ride in the following season, or I simply resell. Now, I had a fairly rare 1983 Honda, again listen to this, another bike you will never have heard of, Honda CBX 600E, that was only made for the Swedish market. Fancy that, making a bike just for the Swedish market. I never understand why some bikes are made for such specific markets. So only made for the Swedish market in a limited edition of only 1,000 pieces. But when I finished it in the spring, I sold it because, despite the beautiful lines, she really wasn't my thing. But while hunting for something new, I came across the similar motorcycle that I had when I started riding more than 40 years ago. And on impulse, I immediately bought it. And it really is a trip down memory lane. It's a black with gold pinstripes, 1980, pictured of course, Honda CB 650Z, and I bought her for just £1,100. The intention is that she will be restored to her former glory again next winter. But after a few minor aesthetic alterations, I will first enjoy this summer riding her. Attach her some photos of the cruises that I've had in recent years and my current Speedmaster, and also both of my Hondas. Greetings from Sweden. Peter, initially when I opened this, I thought, here we go. So Peter is, of course, a massive Harley-Davidson fan. But no, look at some of these. The big cruiser that looks like an Indian, for example, that's a Kawasaki V. This huge bike that looks like a Harley-Davidson cruiser, that is a Kawasaki again. And again, this is this bike here is another Kawasaki, this red cruiser. And finally, I initially thought this was a Harley-Davidson Road King. This is a Yamaha Dragster, but in full-on touring mode. Stunning selection of bikes. And there, of course, is the Triumph and the Honda CBX 600. Now that leads me on to my bike of the week. Peter, thank you for that. Let's see if we can find a bit of exotica. Swedish, Japanese exotica. Honda CBX 600E. Sold only in Sweden from 1983 to 1984. 65 horsepower, shaft drive. You know, Honda do this often, it's really annoying. It's like when I went out to Barcelona and I met Jake with his unbelievably beautiful, characterful Honda VXR 400. Just the most incredible sub 400 bike I've probably ever ridden, and we never got it in Europe. And similar with this shaft drive CBX that was only sold in Sweden for 2 years. Is it possible? Is it possible to find one in the UK? Let's see, let's go on to eBay. Honda CBX 600E. One. I almost can't believe it. One has popped up. This is amazing. Sold in Sweden only for 2 years, and there is one in the UK right now available for sale, private seller, in red. Oh, it looks brilliant. Here we have, listen to this, a very tidy 1983 Honda CBX 600 shaft-driven, bike in good condition, not mint. I've had her out a few times last year, and it is a great commuter bike. Any questions? Just call. Take a look at that Speedo. That Speedo looks like the mathematics papers you're given as a child to try and figure out sums. Strange looking thing. But a perfectly nice looking bike, and for £2,000, you would be able to own a bike, a vehicle that's so rare you could almost guarantee that any biker meet, any vehicle meet in general that you go to, you will own the rarest vehicle in the entire meet. It doesn't matter how big the meet is, it doesn't matter how rare a Ferrari or a Ducati is next to you. Almost guaranteed, your little Honda is going to be the rarest vehicle there. And purely from a talking point of view, surely that's got to be worth it for £2,000 for someone. It's the kind of bike that no one would ever search for on eBay, so it's not going to be jumping off the shelves at the rate of knots. But if someone wants something a little bit edgy, and it's a Honda, there's not much to worry about, why not consider one of those? £2,000. You don't need to pay any charges to ride into London. There's no tax. There is no, I was about to say insurance, of course there's insurance. There's no MOT, no annual check, nothing. This will actually be a very good bike to own. And I'll wrap it up there. This has been, for me, an especially interesting podcast. Thank you so much, everyone, as always. I always say it, without all of you sharing your thoughts and opinions, your stories, impossible to do this. So thank you so much to all of you. Have a brilliant week. I'll speak to you all in the next one.